Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hello again. I'm Justin, also known as Zero Score if you've seen my videos on YouTube, streams on Twitch, or podcasts with the Charge Shot crew, and I have been graciously allowed to come back for the third time to cover another one of my favorite games of all time, Mega Man X4. I know what you're saying. Why jump right to 4? Well, two reasons. One, I think someone already covered the first X game, and I'm honestly not a big fan of 2 or 3, but mainly, since I was a kid, I've been known as Zero online. And that is largely in part because of Mega Man X4. Sure, the character was introduced in the SNES games, and I loved him then, but he was always kind of a background character. X3 hyped up his first playable appearance, but he was literally stripped from the rest of the game if he died once. Not that playable after all. So imagine my surprise when I get a PS1 and boot up X4 to see a character select splash screen. You can play the whole game as either X or Zero, and they not only play totally uniquely, but also have their own set of powers to receive from the Robot Masters, and their own storylines that intersect to tell one complete story, encouraging replayability with both characters, even though the level progression itself is largely the same. It's funny though, a lot of people call the Zero run a hard mode of the game, but I never actually played through the game as X until I was an adult and picked up the game again with the collection on Switch. Zero was my guy. I didn't know he was considered harder to play as. I say that to admit that this podcast will be skewed in Zero's favor. X is fine, but his boss powers mostly play it safe with just elemental pew-pew shots and a few auxiliary power upgrades for his suit that Zero doesn't get. But instead, most of Zero's powers provide him new traversal mechanics as well as a more robust moveset, which I love because it ties the boss order more intrinsically to the player's pool of moves. For example, the first boss I'd always do as Zero is Magma Dragoon. It's not the easiest boss, and the level itself has some kind of cheap, magma pits that can result in one-hit deaths. But the boss himself can be fairly easily beaten using the ride armor power that you get at the end of the level, because it prevents Zero from really taking any damage for a good majority of the fight until the ride armor is destroyed. And Magma Dragoon also gives you a flame uppercut that makes the ice boss, Frost Walrus, a piece of cake. That's pretty standard Mega Man stuff, but then you've got Split Mushroom, who gives you technically 2 moves, a double jump and a fantastic spin attack that whips Zero's saber around in a circle, effectively turning him into a spinning death circle, which is a dope band name, I might add, if anyone wants to use it. That one's on me. The close-range hitbox on his attack admittedly makes some bosses more challenging, as you're more likely to get hit dashing in close, and he can't move during his combo string on the ground, so you're left vulnerable while slashing away. But a fully kitted out Zero, going into the final stages, just feels so much more fluid and fun to control than X in full armor, shooting everything harmlessly from a distance. The final Sigma fight, though, that 3-stage battle is so much harder as Zero. I couldn't do it as a kid. Even my first Let's Play ever on YouTube ended up in a rage quit because I tried to record myself beating the game for the first time, and I failed. It wasn't until a few years ago with that Switch collection that I finally hunkered down and beat it after many more attempts than I am willing to admit. That's when I finally decided to run the game again as X, and sure enough, breezed through the game without any problem, and beat all 3 Sigma stages on the first try, because I could mostly just stay out of harm's way while whittling away his health. Turns out I was making it harder on myself all these years by preferring Zero, but hey, I wouldn't want it any other way. X is dumb. Fight me. You could argue I also had a better, understanding of the level design and everything as X, and that if I had played my first run as X, it might not have been as successful, but whatever. Zero's awesome. Fight me. Anyway, I could go over all the bosses and their stages here, but frankly, they're not the best part of the game. Honestly, there's a few absolute stinkers, like Cyber Peacock in its graded speedrun sections, where it locks you out of health upgrades and other goodies if you don't get through each section fast enough. Or, like the aforementioned Split Mushroom, with some kind of boring elevator section that basically just evolves into killing enemies and dodging instant kill spikes while you get carried upward. And of course there's Jet Stingray, the level that's almost entirely played on a speeder bike, while the Maverick himself taunts you the whole time. Oh, if you don't know, anything about this series, Mavericks are what the Robot Masters are called in these games. I wasn't making a Top Gun reference or anything. Though, given the naming of Jet Stingray, I guess that kinda works too. Anyway, the point is, of the 8 levels in the game, maybe half are what you'd call decent. But I've never really thought too critically about the level design in this game because Zero is just so fun to control that I just enjoy dashing through them, even if they're not the strongest levels of the whole series. Well, I enjoy dashing through most of them. Cyber Peacock, that's just genuinely one of the worst levels in a Mega Man game, ever. But the boss fight in that one kinda sucks too, so at least it's consistent. But yeah, there's honestly so much I could say about this game, and maybe I will someday. I did a video a few years ago on how much I hate Mega Man X5, so it would be only fair if I did one on how much I love this game. But for now, I just thought it'd be a fun excuse for some word vomit about my favorite X game. Largely because it finally fulfilled my childhood dream of playing as Zero, and that was just as awesome as I thought it would be. Though I could have done without the voice acting. Or really any of the garbage story that gets worse with every entry in the series.
No, this isn't happening! There's no reason for me to go on. What? What am I fighting for?
But hey, video games are meant to be played, not watched. And Mega Man X4 plays real good. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
So, I have a question. Have you ever wanted to get into comics, but you just didn't know where to start? Well, welcome to Comics Quest. I'm JD Martin, and every week I sit down with a guest to talk a comic that I think anybody can pick up and start their comics reading journey. We take a look at psychedelic sci-fi, fantastical action, heart-wrenching love stories, and of course, superheroes. So check us out at certainpov.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.